Hey guys, so in this one we're going to continue with the abilities and we're actually going to set up a couple of them. So the first one will be Stone Form, which will just buff the character, and then the second one will be Whirlwind, which will actually attack all of the enemies around you. So you can see how the different abilities can be set up. So first thing, there is a link in the description that you can download these two animations. If you open the first one, you can see this is made for 200 weapon, which is fine because for now we're only testing it. Later on I can provide different animations for different combat types and buffs. And then the second one is ability for Whirlwind, which is actually spinning attack. Again, it's made for 200 weapon, but this one we can actually use for dual wield or any weapon because it is just spinning attack. If it bothers you, we can also edit it in a sequencer so he doesn't have hold the arms together on the second part of the animation. So when he stops spinning, we can just separate one of the arms. So for now, this will be fine. Before we do anything with the abilities, I want to do one small fix because at the moment we do have one issue that when you press Parry button, which I have bind to Q then I'll log myself out of any action because what I'm doing here on the Parry is we're only checking if we can execute action or if we're blocking. So we're not checking if we have weapon equipped, and that way we set current action tag to Parry, but when we don't have weapon equipped, we don't play any montage, and that way we never remove that action tag. So you won't be able to do anything if you press it before the weapon. So fix is very easy. All we have to do is here from this can execute action, we're going to do end boolean, and we just need to check if this tag, copy it, if we have tag, and this one will be character status, checks weapon equipped. Okay, so if we have weapon equipped and can execute action, or we are blocking, we should already have weapon equipped, then we can execute this. And this will fix the issue. So compile and save, that is now fine. And let's go to ability component, and first what we want to do is set up the function that will actually execute the ability. So we're going to create an event graph because we also want to play the montages with the montage notifies, and you can't do that in a function. So let's go to the graph, and here we're going to add custom event, and this one will be execute action. Execute action, execute ability. Execute ability. We will need input, which will be type abilities enumerator, and we'll call it ability. That is the ability that we want to execute. Then we will do switch. And here we only created two abilities in the previous video, which is Stone Form and Whirlwind. So on Stone Form, what we want to do is play montage. So play montage. And here we actually need skeletal mesh component. Since we are in the ability component, we don't have access to the player one. But the workaround would be just get owner. And we can actually get components. We could get components by class, but the problem is it will give us all of the meshes currently on the player. And we do have 5 of them or 6 because we do have one for each part. So we need to get components by tag. Here we will select skeletal mesh component. So it will give us all of the skeletal meshes component with a certain tags. So if we go to player and select the main mesh, which we want to play montage on, we will search for tag. And here we'll add one more because we do have a body tag, but it's added to most of these. And this new one will be just mesh. We can copy it so we don't spell it wrong, and in ability component paste it here. So now it will give us only one component that has the mesh tag. We can get a copy on index 0, and that is our mesh that we will play montage on. So it will play on the player from the ability component, and here I'm going to select, we don't actually have a montage, so let's go to animations. By the way, I recommend creating new folder for abilities so you can hold all the montages and abilities together. Select these two, right click, and we're going to create anim montage. one thing we need to do is set the root motion on the animations. So enable root motion, and for the second one as well. Save all so we don't lose it. And then let's go back to abilities, and here we're going to play buff, ability buff montage. Alright, so very simple setup. This will actually execute the ability. Now in the use ability function, in the end, after we have done all the checks, what we want to do is just call execute ability. Ability is this one here. We do have a variable, and that will execute the ability. Now in the player, when I press certain button, I think I have it set up on B, I use ability, and it's set to stone form. So it should already work. If I press it now, I'm not passing the checks because I do need to have a weapon equipped. We set it up in the data table. So I will equip 200 weapon, press B, bam, I'm playing the buff montage. And my mana is going down. So that's working fine. I can move. Cooldown is 1 second, and that is the only thing at the moment preventing me from spamming it. So we'll have to fix it with gameplay tags later. But for now, what we want to do is actually buff the character. And we don't want to buff him on the beginning of the montage. We want to buff him during this part when he puts the sword down. So here somewhere. For that, let's open the montage. Let's set up montage notify. So somewhere here, it's like frame 16. I'm going to, next to notify track, right click, add notify, and search for montage notify. And then select it, and this one will be buff. Since there will be only one montage notify, we don't really need to name it anything, but it's always better practice if you need to add one more later. So save it. That will refresh when you reopen this, just so you know. So buff. And now in the ability component, on execute ability, what we want to do is on, or let's go from the notify name first, do switch on name. We will remove default pin, and we will add buff. But as I said, since there is only one montage, we need to connect this to on notify begin. And as soon as that notify begins anyway, it will just go here to this buff. And what we want to do on the buff is get owner. And for buffing the character, we already have everything set up in conditions component. So we will get component by class. And this one will be conditions component. And then we will just create condition, which I think is called just create condition, yeah. So call create condition function, and depends what buffs you have, but we have set up fortify in the video. So that will fortify. Let me just quickly check what it actually does. Is if we go to third person, blueprints, first I'm going to check it in data table, conditions, and it's fortify, so duration 10 seconds. I'll do like 30 seconds. I don't have an icon, so maybe search for one of the armor ones, this one. And then in the condition component, when we apply it, so in the components condition, here on fortify, I'm just modifying armor by 40. I'm going to change it to 100. So it's actually, we can see the difference as well. So minus 100, 100. And now, that should be all. We should be able to actually buff our character with the ability. So I equip this weapon. I press B. Bam! I got the buff. Now I can fight this guy. I do have stun set up on the enemies. But you can see he's probably taking, I'm taking reduced damage from him because I do have 100 extra armor, and that's my ability. So that's working fine. I'm just going to quickly remove stun from the enemy so we can test more abilities. So that is in conditions component, and delete this effect. And now that is one ability done. It's very simple. Ability component. Let's do Whirlwind. So for that, let's get these things again. Copy it. We could probably make a reference so it doesn't need to get a component, but it's fine. If you want to create the reference, you can just promote this to a variable and that will be player mesh. I'll just get it again. Connect the Whirlwind to play montage. This time we're going to play Whirlwind. So this will just play it. No matter what happens, it will stop all the other montages. But what we want to do is, at the moment, it won't be hitting anyone. So let's go inside the Whirlwind animation. And here we want to set up line trace. So we do have notify state for it. So just leave maybe one frame out. And then right click, add notify state. And this is attack line trace. And just let's extend it until the end of attack, which is here. Save it. And this will actually execute the line trace. And we should be able to already hit the enemy. I need to use the ability. So copy this, paste it. And I'm going to change this to something that is not bound to quick slot N. So obviously these abilities will be bound to quick slot and then you can use them with those keybinds. But for now we have to do it manually. So use ability on N and this one will be Whirlwind. Compile and save. This needs to be ability component. And now I can press it now because I still need to have a weapon equipped. And now if I press N, I'm executing this attack. If I get close to this enemy, it's on cooldown. Okay, let me just change the cooldown quickly. So in abilities, Whirlwind will be 1 second. And I'm going to remove requirements. So it will be any weapon. I can execute it. So now what happens is if I go close to this guy, you can see I'm hitting it for player damage because the line trace is executing, it's getting my player damage and it's hitting him for it. And I can spam it. So we do have a first ability and this can hit multiple enemies around you because the line trace is around you. So I can probably execute it without the weapon, which will give me error because the line trace can't work without the weapon equipped. But if I equip it, you can see I'm hitting all of them. And not even at the same time, just when the line trace actually hits them. So that's awesome. But as I said, it gives me error because if you execute it without the weapon, you don't have the weapon reference in the combat component. So we need to prevent it. First thing we're going to do is, so we now have an ability. Now we want to do gameplay tags, so we can actually execute them like one after the other. We need to wait. But what I want to also do is be able to execute the ability during the attack or any other action that is not maybe dodging, because you have it set up like in most of the games. One example that comes to mind is New World, which is big online multiplayer game. And basically when you attack, as soon as the attack animation goes, you can press any ability and it will actually execute that ability, which is really nice system because that's how it should work. So when the ability is off cooldown, you should be able to use it. But I'm going to prevent using it during the jump or dodge because I don't want to do that. So first thing, use ability. We will be using just this even when we press quick slot. So we will have to do functionality inside it, not before. So let's go to use ability. And here we have all the checks for mana and stamina. So before that, let's do one more. First, sorry, let's go back to player, select gameplay tags, and we're going to create new tag. So on the character, this one won't be action. It will be on the checks. So add subtag, and this will be character checks and is executing ability. New tag. Alright, so that will just be a check. And now back in this use ability, before what we want to do is Let me think about it. So we need to do branch. And first, yeah, we need to check it before we check the mana or check the weapon requirement, because if we can't actually execute the ability, there is no point checking anything else. What we're going to do is, again, branch, and first we need to get the owner gameplay tags. So get owner. We do have interface function, which is get gameplay tags, I think. Yeah, get gameplay tags message. In player it is set up at the moment. On enemy it's not, but for enemy we're not doing the abilities just yet. So it will give us gameplay tags, and then from gameplay tags let's also promote it to local variable, so that will disappear when the function is reset. So promote to local variable, and this will be local gameplay tags, just so we don't have to get it multiple times in this function, because we need to do a few checks. So the checks we will be doing is from the gameplay tags we're going to check has tag, and first one we will be character status, checks executing ability, and we're going to do not boolean, because then after from the branch we want to continue from the true branch that we can execute ability. So if we are not executing ability, you can do exact match here, then we can continue. Second one we'll do end boolean is again hashtag. As I said, I don't want to do ability while we're dodging, because it won't look very good when you like halfway into rolling and then you execute ability. So we're going to check if the character actions is dodging. Again, we need to do not boolean. Copy this whole thing. We need to do one more check, because we do have jumping separately. So this one will be jumping. So we are not jumping. And then one more thing is we should probably check if the weapon is equipped. So this one won't be not, because we need to have a weapon equipped. So character actions, status weapon, no, checks weapon equipped. Alright, so character is not executing the ability, character is not dodging, and character is not jumping, and we have a weapon equipped. Alright, so this is all the checks. Connect this thing to all of the tag containers, and then we're going to pack it into macro. So let's connect it first to branch, so it gives us output. Select all of these, right click, collapse to macro, and this will be can execute ability. Open it up, because we don't want to have 4 containers, it's the same container. Disconnect all of these and just get the first one, and then we delete these inputs. There we go. Tag container no longer, right, okay. Disconnect, we don't need it. There we go. So can we execute action? Yes. So then as soon as we execute the action, or somewhere in the end, probably we can even do it in execute ability, double click on that, we need to add tag to player that we are executing the ability. So in owner, that's another interface function, we're going to set gameplay tag message that will tell player on enemy to add tag, and this one will be character checks executing ability. Compile and save. And what we should actually also do is probably we need to, let me check quickly. Yeah, what we need to do is basically while we attacking and then we execute the ability, we never will remove the current action. So we will be stuck again because the montage won't finish. So we won't never get to that notify that can execute action. But for that in the player, if you see that we do have an interface function call enable action, and that will remove current action tag. So all we have to do is if we execute ability, we're going to call this. So in the ability component, again from the owner, after we set gameplay tag, we're going to also enable action message. And that way, after the ability is done, we can enable another action, like we can attack or something. Cool. So this should be working fine. But now in the player, we also need to change something in can execute action, because even though we want to execute ability while some action is being executed, we don't want to do it all the way around. So can execute action, we're going to get this whole thing, copy it, paste it, and character checks status is executing action, is not executing action. Here, by the way, these two should be exact match. This one not, don't check this one, that's any action. And going to other pin. And that's it. So now we should have a perfect system. Let me try the ability. Can't execute it now. One more thing I'm going to actually add, because I like the sound when I can't execute the ability. So in the ability component, in use action, use ability, here on false, I'm going to play sound. You can see this is a bit different. We're going from the false branch to continue. So I think preferably we would do not here and not on this one as well. So we can go from true branch or just connect the sounds to false here. And that will be the object pickup, which is by default in Unreal Engine. So now if I press B here, you can hear the sound that I can execute action, or N. Then I equip the weapon, I can attack normally. But then during attack, if I press action, there we go, I execute action. So I can attack, I can attack, I can attack. So it never removed the action again, even though we called it. Why it didn't happen? So ability components. Can execute. What is the execute ability? Enable action from the owner. It should be working fine. Is not because we're not removing the executing ability. Never. So what we need to do is let's go to Whirlwind. In the end, we already have a notify that removes the action tag. So add notify, and this will be remove something, remove gameplay tag. So somewhere maybe here. You don't want to go all the way to the end, just when it kind of stops moving. Move it here, and on this tag we can set which tag we want to remove. So we're going to get character checks is executing ability, because we finish executing ability, and we need to do the same thing on the buff. And on the buff, not on this one, on the montage, we want to find the spot. So again here, right click, add notify, which is remove gameplay tag, and same thing, we want to remove character actions, checks, always the wrong one, is executing ability. So this what we have basically instead of can execute action on the abilities. This will just remove that check that we are executing ability. So play it now. Okay, so this should be the final test. Now if I attack and straight away press N, I attack second time with this ability, but then I can attack again, not before the ability lets me. So if I spam this and press attack, I can only do it in the end, as you can see. Now, during the dodge, if I'm dodging. I can't execute ability, but as soon as I stop, I can do it. So I can dodge to these guys and execute ability, which is perfect. And then again, attack, ability, attack, ability. After ability, I can do buff. I can do another ability, but it's going one in the order. So you can see how this system will be powerful. And now in the next one, what we need to do is add it to quick slots, so we can actually execute it from the quick slots and see the cooldowns. That will make it much better. And then also, that will probably be even another video, is we need to do some effects. So on the buff, in the preview, I did like a overlay over the character, like a light that buffs the character. That's quite nice. In the Whirlwind, we can actually do some kind of weapon trace, you know, so it will be spinning around you and stuff like that. So yeah, hope you like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.